It's October in Anchorage, and Chip Freeman has grabbed his digital camera to document some fresh snow around his house. Yes, it snows in October up there, so that's not a surprise, but what his camera is about to record certainly is. As we pan across Chip's property, a strange stationary vertical purple beam of light appears in front of him, and it's still there when he pans the camera back to the same spot. Chip says he noticed the strange beam as he was rolling.
I kind of paused for a moment, trying to figure out what this was. I took my eye off the viewer and noticed that I couldn't see it by the naked eye. It was only through the camera lens that you could see this, which also was intriguing.
Journalist MJ Benaya says this area of Alaska is a hotbed of strange happenings.
There's a lot of stories out there where there's strange electromagnetic forces or portals that exist in this area. Similar to a lot of the theories that exist around the Bermuda Triangle, random gateways to other worlds will open up or wormholes will occur and planes will go missing into them.
A stunning 16,000 people have reportedly vanished in the so-called Alaska Triangle since the late 80s. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt has actually been up here to research such activity.
Some of the stranger cases that I've investigated, back in 1950, for example, a Douglas C-54D military craft, an airplane with 44 personnel on board, vanished on the Alaska-Yukon border without a trace. And there was a massive search mounted, and to this day, no trace of that particular airplane has ever been found.
Gerhardt thinks Chip's sighting could be some of the same anomalous energy fields emanating from below the Alaska Triangle that are also rumored to cause many of the strange disappearances in the area.
Lights like this could in fact be geological or electromagnetic discharges from the Earth, basically concentrated energy beams that are being projected upward into the heavens.
I really do want to know what this is. There's just so many strange phenomena that happens here.
Perhaps the most famous incident in the Alaska Triangle happened in 1972, when a plane carrying U.S. Congressman Hale Boggs disappeared there without a trace. So might those unsolved mysteries actually connect somehow to what Chip caught on camera? Chip, you know what's coming next. Astrophysicist Hakeem Oluseyi initially thinks this is not the result of an energy portal, but instead light interacting with a transparent surface. However,
what I saw looked to me like a sort of optical effect that I've seen on glass. So I could see that sort of effect, like a reflection. But it turns out that the camera's outdoors. They're not looking through a window.
the beam would stay centered if it were a mere reflection, so this beam instead could be a spectrum of light that the camera sensor can pick up, but that the human eye can't. But Oluseyi also has his doubts.
Typically, if you had a beam like this, because the ultraviolet or X-ray has such short wavelengths, they're going to be very strongly scattered in the air.
If this were an invisible energy discharge being picked up by the camera, we would see more of a static effect emanating from the center of the beam than the concentrated line in Chip's video. Photography expert Andrew McCarthy believes the answer does in fact involve visible light, and how when it's particularly bright, it can cause a glitch in how an individual pixel on a digital camera sensor processes one part of the image, aka the readout.
Basically what happens is once the readout gets too high on a specific pixel, it bleeds into the neighboring pixel. And if that happens excessively, it'll actually bleed down an entire stripe of pixels on that camera. That appears to be what we're looking at here.
Since the digital camera sensor is a grid of pixels, the line of purple light is actually a column of pixels being overloaded by sunlight in one spot. And the age of the camera is another clue.
This image came from 2004. So those sensors back then are a little bit different. They don't have today's modern technology that prevents artifacts like this.
So Chip, here's where we are landing. That purple light beam is the result of overexposure on the camera's digital sensor, and while the footage is not connected to the anomalies in the Alaska Triangle, the high rate of disappearances in the region should still give the rest of us food for thought when visiting. 2009, Nushagak Bay, Alaska. Salmon fisherman Kelly Nash is on a boat with his sons, Jason and Kyle, when suddenly they spot unusual movement in the water next to them and start recording this video. The shaky black and white footage shows what appears to be a long, dark, serpentine creature with humps on its back, moving rapidly through the water.
Now watch, its head's gonna pop out. Check this out.
It's blue. Let's look at that again. Kelly estimates the massive creature to be about 20 to 30 feet long. While this footage is curiously unique, it may actually be showing us a clearer view of a legendary creature, a cryptid as they're known, that's been widely reported before. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt explains.
Cadborosaurus, or caddy, is a mysterious sea creature that's been reported off the coast of Pacific North America. The name is associated with the location where it's most been seen, which is Cadboro Bay, British Columbia. Cadborosaurus is generally described as an immense serpentine animal, anywhere from 60 to 100 feet in length, with a horse-like head, sharp fish-like teeth, giant forward-facing eyes.
There have been more than 300 sightings of caddy over the past 200 years, including one case in the 1930s that may have produced actual physical evidence of the creature.
During the summer of 1937, off the coast of British Columbia, there was a strange animal that was found in the stomach of a sperm whale. This animal popped out that was snake-like in form, had a horse-like head, 2 flippers, and a fluke tail. The man in charge actually had these workers take some photographs of it. Subsequently, this became known as the Naden Harbor carcass. In my opinion, this is the same animal that we see in this video. But there are other theories as well, that perhaps we could be looking at a primitive type of snake-like whale known as a basilosaur.
The basilosaur, or Basilosaurus, was a fearsome predatory whale which swam the oceans nearly 40 million years ago. And while scientists first described this as a giant reptile, further research determined it to be a marine mammal, one that could grow up to 65 feet in length. Could this be the same creature?
There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of eyewitness accounts, so I think that we could build a pretty strong case that this animal really does exist.
Right after this video was revealed, 2 Cadborosaurus researchers went to visit the Nash family, who shot this footage. They claimed the creature fully lifted its head out of the water and even turned to face their camcorder. But of course, that piece of evidence isn't on this recording. Let's see what our experts have to say about the evidence that remains. We first wanted to check the authenticity of this tape, so we brought it to forensic video analyst Michael Primo.
This video has indications that it was enhanced. It has processing done to enlarge it as well as stabilize it. There's too many unknown variables here to actually arrive at some sort of accurate conclusion. Because the video has been enhanced.
So there's already a red flag. But to be fair, we spoke with marine biologist Shay Steingass. She first looks at this creature's possible connection with the prehistoric Basilosaurus.
I don't think that's what we're looking at, because the body type of the basilosaur was actually pretty solid. It wasn't a snake-like animal.
However, Steingass believes this creature does have more in common with the marine mammal Basilosaurus than the supposed reptile corpse from Naden Harbor.
Nushagak Bay is part of a polar Arctic environment, very cold environments to live in. It's very unlikely that any kind of reptile-like animal, especially this size, would be existing in Nushagak Bay. The animals that thrive here are typically either fish, invertebrates that live on the bottom, or marine mammals. There's really no reptiles or snakes that this could be mistaken for.
Many online critics claim we are just looking at some piece of trash or floating debris. But the dozens of tech people and fishermen who have studied this video can't explain how debris could move in such an organic way. Other skeptics have suggested this could be a formation of seals, or possibly a known giant animal like an oarfish or a giant eel. But surprisingly, Steingass is doubtful.
The oarfish has these beautiful dorsal fins that help them be more hydrodynamic as they swim. And we don't see that here. This animal doesn't really seem to have any clear anatomy. Another really popular theory is that this is some kind of a giant eel. And frankly, there's no species of eel that would be quite this size in Nushagak Bay.
And as far as seals go, Steingass says it's unlikely, since seals don't typically swim in linear groups, nor would they keep their heads submerged while exposing other parts of their body. So with all of these potential possibilities ruled out, does Steingass have any idea what this is? Unfortunately, like many who have chased Caddy's tail, she's stumped.
This is really interesting footage, and part of the charm of it for me is that it's difficult to tell exactly what we're looking at. So this might be one of those classic sea monster videos that's gonna stick around for a long time.
Our verdict? Possible cryptid. If the video is legit, and yes, that's an if, whatever this thing is has stumped our ace marine biologist. People have been looking at this footage since 2009, and to this day, it remains a mystery. But you can be sure, if any more footage of Caddy comes our way, you'll see it here first. October 2016, Craig McKay of Alaska's Bureau of Land Management is overlooking the Chena River in Fairbanks when he notices something extremely peculiar in the water. It looks to be around 20 to 25 feet long, and when we zoom in, it appears to be swimming against the current.
I looked down and saw this really bizarre object. It was much larger than anything I'd seen in the river, and it was undulating or swinging back and forth in the current. It was really spooky.
Given the location of this discovery, field researcher Ken Gerhardt says we should consider the local folklore.
In Alaska, we do have a number of legends of water creatures. The Inuit culture talks about something called the Tizharuk, which is a long serpentine animal with a long head, a prominent tail fin. There are many tales of the Tizharuk actually snatching people off of bridges or out of canoes and devouring them voraciously.
Gerhardt says descriptions of the Tizharuk vary, but the most terrifying form is said to be a giant eel-like creature with transparent skin, which not only allows observers to see still digesting victims, but also makes the creature less visible when stalking its prey.
In addition, we have the Lake Iliamna monster, which is also known as the Jigignak. This particular monster has been reported several times. It's described as being 10 to 30 feet in length, with a torpedo-shaped body and kind of a dull aluminum color. So, we have to ask the question, could this be related to those stories?
Early stories of the Jig-Ignak described fish-like monsters traveling in groups and attacking canoes. So is that, or one of its descendants, what we're looking at here? Let's let the experts decide. Marine biologist Dr. Shay Conger says if this thing were a snake, it's unlikely to have accumulated snow on his back. And as for serpents,
There's no water snakes in Alaska. This is because reptiles and amphibians are exotherms. They're reliant on the environment to maintain their body heat, and there really isn't enough heat to allow these species to persist in this area.
so Dr. Conger turns for clues to the hydrology of the sea, the motion of the water.
It seems to kind of be moving back and forth through the water, as you would expect an animal with a tail to be swimming against the current.
But hold on, look again.
When the video zooms out a little bit, you can actually see that this object doesn't seem to be moving forward at all. Rather, it's just fixed in place and being hit by the moving current downriver. Therefore, I conclude this isn't a biological object. Rather, it's some type of debris like a piece of rope or a fishing line encased in ice.
So there you have it. Our verdict, based on Dr. Conger's hydrology analysis, this is a frozen rope. But sightings of Alaskan lake and river monsters continue to this day. Are they all misidentifications? Or is there really something down there? We'll keep looking for more video until we have an answer. It's getting dark on the evening of October 8th, 2020. Keith Lindsay is out in the wilderness of Fairbanks, Alaska, metal detecting. The sun is beginning to set when he hears something that stops him in his tracks.
Whoa, did you hear that?
He begins to pack up when the growl grows closer.
The first few sounds I heard kind of sounded like a howl. That's why I thought they were wolves. But then they started shortening up to like grunts or whoops.
Oh, jeez.
A final scream encroaches too close for comfort before an object is thrown into the waters beside him. And Keith gets out of there fast. Let's hear it one more time.
Oh, jeez.
That was that loud and that close. I didn't want to hear it louder or closer.
Field researcher Cliff Barrickman points out that Fairbanks does lie in the middle of an area in Alaska known for unusual activity, including strange lights in the sky, alleged alien abductions, and even Bigfoot sightings.
Everyone's heard of the Bermuda Triangle. Well, it turns out that there's another triangular area up in Alaska where all sorts of stuff happens that's really weird. The Alaskan Triangle is a geographic area enclosed by 3 points: Juneau, Anchorage, and a town called Utqiagvik. Over the last 4 decades, literally thousands of people have gone missing in the wilds of Alaska. Hundreds of search parties have been organized, and very few of these people have ever surfaced.
And while we usually think of Bigfoot as a more reserved creature, Barrickman says they can be aggressive.
Sasquatches are not herbivores like all the other ape species. Sasquatches have been observed hunting and killing and eating animals. Everything from deer and elk to rodents, you name it. And if a Sasquatch is pressed into a starvation situation, human beings probably look delicious at times.
Oh, jeez.
According to the indigenous people from the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, a Bigfoot once stole a child from a canoe. As the story goes, by the time Bigfoot was tracked down, he had already partially eaten the little girl and was killed for his misdeeds. So there's really no shortage of murderous Bigfoot tales from this area. Let's see what our experts think. First, wildlife biologist Stephanie Shuttler answers a basic question. Could Bigfoot even survive in Alaska?
Of the existing primate species, none of them live in cold environments except for the Japanese macaque. All of the other ones are in more tropical areas, so it's very unlikely that a primate could survive in this type of environment. Also, there are scientists who do a lot of research there. There would be dung evidence, some indication on camera traps. Those scientists have not found any of that.
But what about those whooping noises that are attributed to Bigfoot?
Animals make some weird noises. Lynx and bobcats make some crazy, scary noises as well, so that can't be ruled out.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, but Keith recorded something. So forensic audio analyst Ed Primo, yes, he's Michael's dad, takes a crack at deciphering what we're hearing.
I hear a sound that is indicative of what an animal would sound like, howling. So I pulled some examples of other animals that are in the Alaskan wilderness.
First, the Kodiak bear, one of the largest carnivores in the world.
So when I look at the wave formation of the bear, the frequency range is 500 hertz and below. The frequency range of the unknown sound is a little bit higher, around 800 to 1,000 kilohertz. I can safely rule out this sound coming from a bear.
Next, the fearsome wolverine, also known as the devil bear in Alaska.
The wolverine is a much higher frequency range, more like 800 to 3,000. The unknown sound is not a wolverine.
And finally, a wolf. Remember, that's what Kin says he originally suspected. Alaska is home to an estimated 7,000 to 11,000 of them.
This one does represent what I'm hearing with the unknown sound. I've been practicing for 38 years, and this particular recording sounds like an animal. It could possibly be a wolf howl. It appears to be authentic and intact on the original recording and not an overlay or an overdub of the sound.
Oh, jeez.
Our verdict, we're calling this one a possible wolf. Our experts think the howls we hear sound canid in origin, but that doesn't explain that object Keith says was thrown into the water. What wolf or coyote can throw rocks? We can't say for sure what was out there in the woods, but with a population density of a single person per square mile, Alaska is still the final frontier.